Welcome back to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Love series. We're exploring crimes fueled by intense emotions, and today we're diving deep into a case that really shook Kolkata's medical community back in 2016, the double murder of Dr. Sunil and Dr. Anjali Gupta. At first, it seemed like an open-and-shut robbery, but as the investigation went on, a darker story emerged, one of obsession and betrayal.
Yeah, this case is a chilling reminder that things aren't always as they appear. Sometimes the most horrific acts are driven by emotions that just spiral way out of control.
Absolutely. So to really get what happened, let's start by talking about the victims. Who were the Guptas, and what made them so respected?
The Guptas were really pillars of the Kolkata medical community. Dr. Sunil was this well-known cardiologist and Dr. Anjali a beloved pediatrician. But they didn't stop there. Their dedication went beyond the clinic. They did so much charity work. They often provided free care to patients who couldn't afford it.
Sounds like they were not just great doctors, but really good people too. Makes this whole thing even more tragic. Can you take us back to July 2016? Describe what happened.
It was a normal morning. The maid arrived at their apartment, upscale neighborhood in South Kolkata. But what she found was just horrifying. The bodies of Dr. Sunil and Dr. Anjali, they were in their living room. Both had been stabbed multiple times, and it was clear there had been a struggle.
That must have been such a disturbing discovery. What were the investigators thinking at first? Did it seem like a robbery gone wrong?
Robbery was the obvious thought, right, given how brutal it was. But as the investigators looked around, something wasn't right. Nothing valuable was missing. No electronics, no jewelry, not even cash. That really threw them off. And the police started to think there was more to this story.
So no robbery motive. That definitely changed the investigation. What did the police do next? Any early leads?
There wasn't any sign of forced entry. And that suggested that the killer might have known the Guptas, someone they trusted enough to let into their home. So the focus shifted to their inner circle: friends, family, colleagues, even past employees. The police began interviewing everyone close to the couple, looking for anything out of the ordinary.
I bet that was a tough process, especially for those who cared about the Guptas. Did any particular person emerge as a suspect?
Yeah, as the investigation continued, one name kept popping up: Amit Roy, a former driver they had let go a few months before.
Okay, Amit Roy. What made him stand out? Was there something about his dismissal that seemed connected?
Well, there were a few things. Witnesses said they saw him near the Gupta's building the night of the murders. And even more incriminating, forensic evidence. They found Amit's fingerprints on the murder weapon, a kitchen knife from the Gupta's home.
Wow, that directly links him to the scene. Did forensics find anything else that helped build the case against Amit?
Oh, definitely. On top of the fingerprints on the knife, they found blood stains on some clothes near the apartment. And those matched Amit's DNA. It was getting harder and harder for him to deny being involved.
So, with all that evidence against him, what did Amit do when the police confronted him? Did he try to deny it?
No, he didn't. When they presented the evidence, he completely broke down and confessed. He admitted to killing Dr. Sunil and Dr. Anjali. But what really surprised the investigators was his motive. It was twisted. Obsession, rejection, and in the end, just a need for revenge.
It's hard to imagine what could push someone to do that to people who, by all accounts, were so kind and giving. What exactly did Amit say about why he did it?
Well, he developed this unhealthy obsession with Dr. Anjali during the time he was driving them around. He completely misinterpreted her kindness, her just being professional, as her being romantically interested in him.
It's really disturbing that he saw it that way. Did he explain how those feelings even developed?
He said he felt this strong connection to Dr. Anjali. It was the way she talked to him, the conversations they had while he drove. He actually believed there was something more between them.
So he was living in a fantasy, not seeing the reality of the situation. What happened when his fantasy crashed with, the actual relationship?
Dr. Sunil started to notice. He saw how Amit was behaving toward his wife, how inappropriate it was getting. He was concerned, naturally, both for Anjali and just keeping things professional, so he fired Amit.
It makes sense that he did that, protecting his wife, keeping boundaries.
Yeah.
How did Amit take it?
Oh, it made it worse, the rejection. His obsession got even stronger, and he just couldn't see straight anymore. He felt humiliated, betrayed. All his anger went toward both of them, Dr. Sunil and Dr. Anjali.
That's so sad how emotions can completely cloud someone's judgment. Did Amit show any remorse? Any regret for what he'd done?
Not really. His confession was cold. He didn't take responsibility. He blamed the Guptas, said they had led him on, and then just tossed him aside. He actually felt like they owed him revenge for how he felt.
That's chilling, that he couldn't own up to his actions. So what happened after he confessed?
The legal process got underway. The prosecution had a lot to work with. Amit's own words, the forensic evidence putting him at the scene, and witnesses who saw him near the apartment that night.
It sounds pretty damning. Did his lawyers try to fight it?
They did. They tried to paint a picture of Amit as, temporarily insane, driven to this by the stress, the heartbreak. They argued that being obsessed with Dr. Anjali, then getting fired, it pushed him to a breaking point. So it was impulsive, not planned. They were hoping for a lighter sentence, maybe even claiming he wasn't mentally sound.
Trying to shift the blame away from his choices and onto his feelings, huh? Did that hold up in court?
The judge didn't buy it. He pointed out how premeditated the whole thing was. Amit had planned it out. He used a spare key to get in, and he took a knife right from their kitchen.
That doesn't sound impulsive at all. Anything else the judge focused on?
The brutality of the attack, the number of stab wounds, the signs of a struggle, it all pointed to calculated violence. It wasn't a crime of passion, just raw rage. The court saw it as planned and vengeful. Amit's emotional state didn't excuse what he'd done.
So the justice system held him accountable. What was the final verdict?
In 2017, Amit Roy was convicted of the double murder of Dr. Sunil and Dr. Anjali Gupta. He got life in prison, a sentence that reflected the gravity of the crime, how it impacted the whole community.
That sentence really shows that actions have consequences. Emotional turmoil can't justify taking a life. This case makes you think about bigger issues, not just about Amit and the Guptas. What are your thoughts on those larger implications?
It forces us to look at the darker side of what people are capable of, how kindness can be so wrongly interpreted, how rejection can lead someone down this path of obsession and violence. It's not just about a crime, it reminds us how important it is to be clear, to set boundaries, and to see the warning signs of when someone's becoming obsessed.
It makes you think about how we interact, the assumptions we make about people's intentions. We see kindness and compassion as good things, but this shows how those same things can be twisted, used by someone with bad intentions.
Yeah, and we need to be watchful, not just to protect ourselves, but also to see when someone might be struggling, with unhealthy attachments, not seeing things clearly. Stepping in early can really make a difference.
That's a powerful thought. We often look at what happens after a tragedy, but preventing it is just as important. So what can people do to protect themselves, to spot the warning signs of someone who might be turning obsessive?
First, understand that obsession isn't love. It's about control, wanting to own someone. People who are obsessive, they often have these patterns. They go from liking someone to being fixated in an unhealthy way.
What are some of those red flags?
Well, they might shower someone with way too much attention, gifts, messages. They don't respect boundaries. They get possessive and jealous. They might try to cut the person off from their friends and family. And if they get rejected, they might get angry, hostile, even start stalking.
Those are definitely things to watch out for. Catching those early signs is key. But what if someone is already feeling unsafe, threatened? What should they do?
Safety comes first. If you're being harassed, stalked, anything that makes you feel afraid, act right away.
How? What should they do?
Write down everything that happens, dates, times, the details of what's going on. This can be really important if you need to go to the police. Tell people you trust, friends, family, coworkers. Having support is so important. And think about getting professional help, a therapist, someone who knows about stalking and harassment. They can help you stay safe and cope.
Those are all good steps. And if there are physical threats, violence, call the police immediately.
Exactly. They have the resources, the expertise to handle these situations. Getting them involved can protect you and stop things from escalating.
It's clear that dealing with obsession takes a lot of different approaches. Raising awareness, talking openly, supporting both the potential victims and those struggling with these unhealthy attachments.
This case, it really shows how dangerous unchecked obsession can be. It's not just the victims, it's their loved ones, the whole community.
It's a tragedy that shows how urgent this issue is. We need to address it on every level, personal, societal, and legal. We can't just ignore it.
It's a reminder that we need to be aware, protect ourselves, but also recognize those who are struggling and might not be thinking clearly. Early intervention is vital. It can be the difference between a close call and a tragedy.
That's an important takeaway. And we often focus on the aftermath, but prevention is key.
Yeah.
What can individuals do to protect themselves and spot those warning signs?
Recognizing that obsession is not love is crucial. It's about control, a desire to possess and dominate someone. Those who are obsessive tend to exhibit patterns. They go from admiration to unhealthy fixation.
Like what? What are some red flags?
They might bombard someone with excessive attention, gifts, messages, disregard boundaries, become possessive, jealous. They may even try to isolate the person from their support system. And if rejected, anger, hostility, even stalking.
Those are definitely warnings. Spotting them early can make a huge difference. But what if someone is already in danger? What then?
Safety first. If you're experiencing harassment, stalking, anything that feels threatening, you have to act.
What should they do specifically?
Document every incident. Dates, times, details. That's crucial evidence if you need legal action. Tell someone you trust, friends, family, colleagues. Having support is essential. And seeking professional help, like a therapist specializing in stalking and harassment, can be life-saving. They can guide you on safety plans and coping mechanisms.
All critical steps. And any physical threats or violence, contact law enforcement right away.
Absolutely. They are equipped to handle these situations. Calling them can protect you and prevent things from getting worse.
Dealing with obsession needs a multi-pronged approach. We need more awareness, open conversations, and support for potential victims and those grappling with these unhealthy attachments. We've talked about knowing the signs, taking responsibility ourselves. But this case makes you think, is there anything we as a society can do to stop these kinds of things from happening?
That's a huge question. We might not be able to completely stop obsession or violence, but I do think we can make things better. We can build a more supportive, more aware environment.
So where do we even start? What are some actual things we can do as a society?
Education, just having open conversations. We need to be honest about mental health, healthy relationships, and we got to stop romanticizing this obsessive stuff.
Like in movies and shows, where stalking, possessiveness, it's all made to look romantic. That's got to mess with people's ideas of what's okay.
Yeah, for sure. We got to challenge that. Show the real consequences. Obsession is dangerous, it's harmful, it's not romantic.
Okay, so changing how the media portrays it, but what else needs to change?
Mental health resources. People need access to help. Early intervention, treatment, that can be so important for people who are struggling with these thoughts and behaviors.
Right, but there's still this stigma. People are afraid to get help for mental health issues.
So true. That's got to change. It should be seen as a strength to ask for help, not a weakness.
No more stigma, more access to resources. That's a good start. What else can we do as a society?
We got to create safer spaces at work, at school, just in our communities. Clear rules about harassment, stalking, anything that crosses the line.
Okay, having the rules is one thing, but how do we make sure they actually work?
We need people to speak up. When they see something wrong, say something. It might be hard, but it can really make a difference.
Yeah, too often people just stay quiet. They figure it's not their problem, or that they'll make things worse.
I get it. But staying silent doesn't help. When you speak up, you're saying this behavior is not okay, and you're supporting the victim.
And the legal system needs to be a part of this too, right?
100%. We need strong laws against stalking, harassment, and they have to be enforced. And victims need to have protection, support throughout the whole legal process.
This case in Kolkata is such a sad example. It shows how destructive unchecked obsession can be, not just for the victims, but everyone around them.
It's a wake-up call. We have to take this seriously on all levels, personally, as a society, and legally. We can't just sit back and do nothing.
Well said. This has been a really deep look at a complex issue, something we don't talk about enough. We've covered the warning signs, the importance of boundaries, staying safe, and the changes we need to make as a society to prevent future tragedies.
I hope our listeners feel empowered now to see the signs, to ask for help, and to fight for a world where this kind of thing doesn't happen.
So, to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you found it helpful, please share it. Remember, knowledge is power. We can all work together to build a world where obsession and violence aren't tolerated.
And remember, if you or someone you know is struggling, you are not alone. Reach out, talk to someone. There's help out there.
And if you want to learn more about cases like this one, don't forget to follow us on our podcast and YouTube channel. We'll keep bringing you deep dives that make you think, that shed light on the human experience. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.